Hello security gurus, welcome to our new lecture. In this lecture we are going to install git bash on our local system. We will need git bash in order to clone our repo, to make any new commits to our repo and to push our local changes to the GitHub repo on github.com. So let's jump into the action. We are on google.com and we will type git space bash and download and then hit enter. So this is the link from which we will download git bash. Link is git-scm.com downloads. Let's click on it. Once we click on it, you will see that it will detect on which operating system you are working on. And since I'm working on Windows, I'll click on this to download git bash. We can also download it for Linux and Mac operating system. As you can see, it has already started downloading git bash on our local system. Let's wait for a few seconds for download to complete. As you can see, download has been completed. I'll double click on it. As you can see, git installer has been opened. I'll click on next. Then it is installing git bash under C drive, program files and git. I'll keep the same installation location and I'll click on next. As you can see, I want to have an additional icon on the desktop. I'll select this option. Rest of the options I'll leave it as is and I'll click on next. Here it will create a start menu folder with the name of git. I'll keep the menu folder name as is and I'll click on next. So it is asking that use Vim as the Git's default editor. So Vim is a editor which is used to edit any kind of files. It's very popular with Linux. So I'll keep it as is and I'll click on next. So here Git says that by default its default branch name is master. If we want to keep the default branch name as develop or main, we can select this other option which is override the default branch name for new repos. But I do not want to change this behavior. So I'll keep the default option and I'll click on next. Then it says that there are three options, that either we can use git commands from only git bash or we can use git from command line as well as from third-party software, and there is third option using which we can use git commands and some optional Unix tools from command prompt or Windows CMD. I'll choose the default option which is also the recommended option and I'll click on next. So here as you can see, git bash has bundled OpenSSH. SSH stands for secure shell and we will keep the default option. So I'll click on next. Then I'll use the OpenSSL library. OpenSSL library is also very helpful in case we want to generate any kind of self-signed certificate. So I'll use the OpenSSL library and I'll click on next. Then it is asking us about the style or the user interface of git bash. So I'll select the default option and I'll click on next. Then I'll choose the default terminal of MSYS and I'll click on next. Then it is asking us what do we want with the git pull option. So one is the default option, which means that whenever we will do a git pull, it will merge the changes coming from the remote branch to our local branch. Second is rebase. It means that if we do a git pull, rebase option will be done. So git rebase is done to put changes of one branch on the top of another branch. And third option is only ever fast forward. So I'll keep the default behavior and I'll click on next. Then we will be using Git credential manager. In the next lecture, we will have to set up credentials so that we can communicate from git bash to GitHub. So our username and password token will be stored by Git credential manager. I'll keep the default option and I'll click on next. So here it will be enabling file system caching. That is fine. I'll click on next. So these are new experimental options which have been given to us. I would not install any of these options. So I'll click on install. As you can see, it has already started installing git bash on our local system. Let's wait for a few seconds. As you can see, git bash has been successfully installed. I'll select this option which says launch git bash and I'll click on finish button. As you can see, git bash has been successfully installed. I'll maximize it and I'll zoom in. You can zoom in by pressing Control button and by using mouse wheel to zoom in. Now let's write pwd command, which is present working directory command, also used in Linux. So you can see that it has by default opened git bash at C drive users a security guru. So that's how you can install git bash. See you in the next lecture. Thanks for watching.